Welcome back to Listen and Speak Mastery, your go-to channel for personal development, communication tips, and mastering the art of listening and speaking. Today, we'll dive into one of the most profound and impactful books ever written, Man's Search for Meaning, by Viktor Frankl. This book has touched the lives of millions around the world with its message of hope, resilience, and the human spirit's search for meaning in the face of unimaginable suffering. So stick around as we break down the key lessons and insights from this powerful work and explore how you can apply them to your own life. Whether you're looking for inspiration, a new perspective on life's challenges, or just a deeper understanding of the human condition, you won't want to miss this. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Viktor Frankl, let me give you a brief introduction. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist, but what sets him apart from most psychologists is his experience as a Holocaust survivor. Frankl spent 3 brutal years in Nazi concentration camps, and it was during this time that he formulated the foundation of his psychological theory, logotherapy. In Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl combines his personal experiences as a prisoner with his professional insights to explore how humans can find meaning, even in the most terrible situations. The book is divided into 2 main sections. The first part details Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps, and the second outlines his approach to psychotherapy, known as logotherapy, which is centered around the idea that the primary drive in human life is the search for meaning. Unlike other psychological theories of the time, which focused on pleasure or power as the primary motivators, Frankl believed that what people truly need is a sense of purpose, something to live for. Frankl's account of life in the concentration camps is raw and harrowing. The first part of A Man's Search for Meaning is not just a recounting of historical events, but a deep reflection on the human experience. Frankl describes how prisoners were stripped of everything: their homes, their families, their dignity, and even their names. They became numbers, forced to endure unspeakable horrors. But despite the overwhelming suffering, Frankl noticed something profound. While some prisoners gave in to despair, others found ways to maintain a sense of hope and meaning. What Frankl observed was that the prisoners who survived longest weren't necessarily the physically strongest, but often those who had a reason to live. Whether it was the hope of being reunited with their loved ones, the desire to finish a piece of work, or a belief in something greater than themselves, these individuals found meaning in their suffering. And this is where Frankl introduces the idea that meaning is not something that life gives to us. It's something we must create for ourselves, even in the most unbearable circumstances. Frankl's experiences in the camp led him to develop one of the central ideas of the book: that humans can endure almost any hardship if they have a purpose. He writes, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." This quote beautifully encapsulates the core of his philosophy. It's not the suffering itself that breaks us, but the lack of meaning behind it. When we have something to live for, a goal, a person, a cause, we can survive even the most difficult situations. One of the most empowering ideas Frankl shares in Man's Search for Meaning is the notion that no matter what our circumstances, we always have the freedom to choose our attitude. In the camps, everything was taken from the prisoners: their physical freedoms, their possessions, even their identities. But Frankl realized that there was one thing the Nazis could never take from him: his ability to choose how he responded to the situation. Here's a powerful quote that sums up this idea: "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." Even in the depths of suffering, Frankl realized that he could choose his mindset. He could choose to hold on to hope, to think of his loved ones, and to find moments of meaning, even in the darkest of times. This message is so important because it reminds us that, no matter what life throws at us, we always have control over how we respond. In the second part of the book, Frankl introduces logotherapy, the psychological theory he developed as a result of his experiences. Logotherapy is based on the idea that the primary motivation in life is not the pursuit of pleasure or power, but the search for meaning. According to Frankl, humans are driven by a will to meaning, a deep need to find purpose in their lives. Unlike Freud, who believed that humans are primarily driven by the pursuit of pleasure, or Adler, who argued that it's the pursuit of power, Frankl believed that the deepest drive in human life is the search for meaning. He saw that even in the concentration camps where prisoners were deprived of every basic need, those who survived were often the ones who had a sense of purpose. Frankl's theory of logotherapy is simple but profound. He believed that suffering is an inevitable part of life, but that it doesn't have to be meaningless. If we can find meaning in our suffering, we can transform it into a source of strength. As he writes, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This idea is incredibly empowering. It means that even when we can't control the external circumstances of our lives, we can still find meaning in how we respond to those circumstances. Frankl believed that there are three main ways we can find meaning in life. 1. Through work, by creating or accomplishing something significant. 2. Through love, by connecting deeply with others. 3. Through suffering. By facing difficult circumstances with dignity and courage, we can transform suffering into personal growth. Let's explore each of these in more detail. The first path to meaning is through work. Frankl believed that we find meaning by engaging in activities that contribute to the world, whether that's through our careers, creative projects, or acts of service. When we create something of value, we feel a sense of purpose and fulfillment. But work in Frankl's sense doesn't necessarily mean a job or career. It can be any meaningful activity that allows us to express our creativity or help others. Whether it's painting a picture, writing a book, raising a child, or volunteering in your community. When you dedicate yourself to something meaningful, you find purpose. The second path to meaning is through love. Frankl believed that love is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It's through our relationships with others that we can find a deep sense of purpose. Love for Frankl wasn't just about romantic love. It was about the deep connections we share with other people, whether that's with a partner, family, friends, or even humanity as a whole. Frankl shares a moving story in the book about how, even in the camps, the thought of his wife gave him the strength to survive. He writes about standing outside, freezing and starving, but feeling warmth and purpose as he imagined talking with her. Even though he didn't know if she was alive or dead, the love he felt for her gave his life meaning. This shows that love transcends physical presence. It's a source of strength that can carry us through the darkest of times. The third path to meaning is perhaps the hardest to grasp, finding meaning through suffering. Frankl believed that while suffering is inevitable, it doesn't have to be meaningless. He wrote that we cannot avoid suffering, but we can choose how we face it. In Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl explains that it's not the suffering itself that destroys us, but our refusal to find meaning in it. When we face suffering with dignity and courage, we can transform it into an opportunity for personal growth. Frankl writes, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. This means that even in our most painful moments, there is potential for growth and meaning. It's a radical idea, but it's one that has helped countless people find strength in the face of adversity. Another key concept in Man's Search for Meaning is responsibility. Frankl believed that with the freedom to choose our attitude comes the responsibility to make meaningful choices. He wrote that each of us is responsible for finding meaning in our own lives. No one else can do it for us. This sense of responsibility is empowering because it reminds us that we are in control of our own lives. While we may not always be able to control our external circumstances, we are always responsible for how we respond to them. Frankl believed that it is this sense of responsibility that gives life meaning. So what can we take away from Man's Search for Meaning? First, that suffering is an inevitable part of life, but it doesn't have to destroy us. We can find meaning through work, love, and even suffering itself. Second, that the search for meaning is a deeply personal journey. Only you can discover what gives your life purpose. And finally, that even in the most difficult circumstances, we have the power to choose how we respond. As Frankl teaches us, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Until next time, keep searching for your purpose.